Author Donna J. Jodhan presents The Christmas Box Set Number 2. If you have not yet listened to Donna's 12 Days of Christmas Box Set Number 1, then you owe it to yourself to do so. This box set is made of 12 wonderful stories for the Christmas holiday season. They are all filled with mystery, suspense, and they all have happy endings. Now, Donna presents her second 12 Days of Christmas box set, 12 stories with wild imaginings. Donna paints pictures of hope, peace, and a bright future for the world. She develops amazing stories that will warm and thrill the hearts of the listener. Sit back now and enjoy Donna's 12 stories. You can email your thoughts and feedback to Donna at donnajodhan@gmail.com. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone.
Ho, 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 everybody. I'm Donna Jodhan, also known as Detective DJ and author Donna Jodhan. Hey, it's holiday time and I hope everybody is enjoying themselves. Yes, indeed, it's my favorite time of the year when I get to give, when I get to share, when I get to greet, when I get to renew old friendships and make new ones. And most of all, when I love to see people being happy and I like to bring peace and joy to this world. And this is what my stories are all about. It's about hope, peace and joy and, helping to make a brighter future for our little guys. I hope you've had time to listen to at least one of my previous episodes, okay? And I'm going to just name them off for you one more time so that if you have time, please listen in. The first episode was Santa's Special Christmas Sleigh. The second was the President's Christmas Package. The third was Santa's Super Christmas Kids. The fourth was Santa's Magic Marvels. The fifth was the President's Christmas Ice Palace. The sixth, which is, I have to say, one of my favorites, is Santa's Super Christmas Dream. The seventh was Santa's Super Sea Rescue. The eighth was the President's Christmas Cruise. The ninth was Santa's Super Christmas Cradle. And the 10th, which we're now going to be sharing with you, is the President's Christmas Royal Rescue. And I hope you like this one. Okay, are we ready for the description? It is nothing new when President Marco Sumner and his friend Nicholas are summoned just before Christmas to carry out a very special mission. In fact, it has become almost an annual affair. And these two cannot remember when a Christmas has not gone by with them receiving a frantic call from that special someone. Ay, ay, ay. For the most part, Marco and Nicholas have enjoyed working with their special friend, but sometimes they have had to juggle things around to accommodate everyone. Now they are being asked to carry out a royal rescue, and it could not have come at a worse time. Marco's twins, Scotty and Shay, are sick with terrible head colds. And if this is not enough, his oldest son, little Nick, is down with the measles. All three kids are very cranky and demanding. Then Marco's wife, Chelsea, has broken her ankle, and Nicholas has severe laryngitis. Marco has to come up with unique ways to cope. He has to rescue a newborn royal baby and deal with desperate royal parents. He has to deal with kidnappers and a ransom to be paid, and do all of this without enduring too much hardship to the young royal couple. When things go wrong and Marco seems to be on the verge of failure, there is a strange twist, a turn, and then presto, Marco catches a break. And Christmas morning is a one of total joy, happiness, relief for everybody. So now it's on to the story. Part 1. The Cranky Kids. Leave it to the alignment of the stars, and it is almost at holiday time when things tend to happen. Another Christmas season is fast approaching. Everyone is busy getting ready. Festivity is in the air. Bobbin Square is humming with lots of preparation and activity, and it is where President Marco and his family live, along with his best friend Nicholas Gleason and his family. Bobbin Square is located in a very remote corner of the world, and Marco and Nicholas have lived there with their families, along with others, for several years now. Bobbin Square is also home to thousands of less fortunate folks, less fortunate parents and kids with special needs, seniors with nowhere else to go, orphan kids, parents who have lost their kids, and so many others with various unfortunate stories. Bobbin Square is one of the world's best known homes, and it is a place where everyone gets along. It is well protected from intruders, and there is always something going on. Most folks would consider it a privilege and a dream come true to have a chance to live at Bobbin Square. And Marco and Nicholas and their wives have made it so. Bobbin Square is surely the envy of the world, and Marco and Nicholas have worked very hard to make it so. From time to time, they have had to fend off outside interference, and visitors are carefully before they arrive at Bobbin Square. A lot of very innovative inventions have taken place at Bobbin Square. Thus, it is the reason why it is so very protected, and above all, why it is so much the envy of the world. But they have managed to do it well. There's another thing here about Bobbin Square, and another great feature of Bobbin Square is that folks can enjoy their favorite activity based on the weather, and it is based on their preference of weather. Summertime fun, wintertime pleasure, springtime enjoyment, and fall-time activities. So it is at the beach in the summer, the ice skating rinks in the winter, and the biking and walking trails in the spring and the fall. So just imagine this. At any given time, anyone could choose to go fishing, boating, or surfing on the lake or the ocean. Or they could go skiing or skating on trails or slopes or ice skating rinks. Or they could bike and walk on beautiful trails, anything that they desire. Many world leaders have had to call on Marco and Nicholas for assistance with solving various problems and for help to find solutions. And even Santa Claus has had to call on these two men often enough to help him get out of last-minute jams. And their two close friends, Kris Kringle and Josh Reisman. Kris is the president of the Kris Kringle International Foundation, and Josh Reisman is the world-renowned investigative reporter, and they have had to depend on Marco and Nicholas to help them out of various jams. Now, the holidays are fast approaching, and this time Marco and his family and Nicholas have taken a huge hit health-wise. First off, Marco's eldest kid, little Nick, has come down with the measles, and he has been confined to his room for 2 weeks. He is cranky and keeps demanding to have his eye devices brought to him. But Marco has said no. Little Nick needs to rest, take his medication, and most of all, he needs to rest his eyes. So he is being kept in a darkened room. Twins Scotty and Shay have come down with horrible head colds, and they too have been confined to their rooms to rest and recuperate. And if this is not enough, wife Chelsea has broken her ankle, and now she needs to stay off her feet. So it is up to Marco to be the dishwasher, butler, and cook. But thank goodness he has staff to help him. But it does not seem to be quite enough. Then Nicholas has somehow contracted a severe case of laryngitis, and his wife Jane has to take charge of family affairs. On top of all of this, there seems to be a persistent bug flu making the rounds at Bobbin Square, and it appears to be the kids who seem to be the targets of this nasty flu. These two families seem to be struggling, but dads, Nicholas and Marco, have insisted that the families stay positive and get ready for the holidays. Yes, they also need to ensure that the Christmas holiday season is not ruined by this nasty flu bug. And this is how it is at this very moment. Part 2. Some corners of the world. We have already told you about the corner of the world where Bobbin Square is located. Now for the other important corners. In one corner of the world, Santa Claus and his wife, Mrs. Claus, and the Claus family have already begun to prepare for this season Christmas. The reindeer, elves, helpers, and Santa's special kids are busy getting the sleighs ready, preparing the packages for delivery, cooking and baking, rehearsing for various activities, and so much more. Santa's dogs, Yelly and Hamish, are also included in the activities. For this year, they will be riding with Rudolph and Santa on their sleigh. There is never any lack of excitement and activity, and it does not matter that every year the same missions take place. However, Santa always finds a little extra special thing for folks at the North Pole to get involved in. Oh yes, for this year, the North Pole will not only be giving out toys to girls and boys. No. The sleighs, the drones, and the mechanical birds will also be visiting soup kitchens and food banks, orphanages and homes for seniors, and more in the third world countries. In another corner of the world, Kris Kringle and his foundation are preparing to deliver bulging packages of food and toys to the African continent and to South America and the Caribbean. And in yet another corner of the world, investigative reporter Josh Reisner is a little bit slow to get started. However, this is about to change. So, these corners of the world are all engaged in different projects for the upcoming Christmas holiday season for this year. The picture is a happy one, isn't it? But there is yet another corner of the world that we need to tell you about. There is always going to be someone or someones who do not wish to share peace, joy, and goodwill at this time of the year, or at any given time of the year for that matter. And this is the corner of the world that needs to be paid attention to. In this little remote corner of the world, the so-called three wise men live with their families. This little corner of the world is remote, and for the most part, it is one where happiness or unhappiness and sadness abound. For this is what the three wise men want it to be. Each year they thrive on trying to thwart Santa and his mission. At least they try to ruin his Christmas missions, but they also find it time to try and ruin other high-profile events. And they also try to bring devastation to whichever high-profile world leader that they choose to make their target. For this year, they have chosen a special target, and they are confident that they will be able to carry off this particular mission. They have chosen this particular mission for the following reasons. First, they are thinking that what they are planning will capture the attention of the world. Then they are sure that they will be able to make a bundle of money on this. The three wise men have had somewhat of a spotty record when it comes to their successes. They have failed miserably against Santa Claus, but they have had some other minor successes. Now it is time to carry out this particular mission, and this is how it is at this very moment. Part 3. Holiday Plans. There is one well-known young couple that is getting ready for the holidays, and they plan to celebrate in style. They have everything in place to hold a grand gala, and it is scheduled to be a grand one at that. The world will definitely pay attention. No preliminary fanfare, no preliminary news of the actual date and time. It will just be streamed to the world live. They have much to celebrate. Their first wedding anniversary, and a little bundle of joys on the way. And it is expected to be delivered just in time for the holidays. The Grand Gala is supposed to take place somewhere in Europe, and invitations have already been sent out. Invitees will be gathering at an undisclosed location, and then they will be flown to a place in Europe. This is where the Grand Gala will take place. Preparations at the secret location are well on the way, and the date for the occasion has been determined. Invitees carefully screened and chosen, and the invitation only says the following: save the date. You are cordially invited to attend our holiday Grand Gala ball. Help us to celebrate our first wedding anniversary and be a special arrival of a special package. All of the invitees have accepted, and in a matter of days they will be making their way to a secret location where they would be flown to the undisclosed location. Invitees have been told not to bring along anything, dress casually, and be on time for the liftoff. If this event takes place, it will be the talk of the world for many years to come. Chris Kringle and his foundation are part of the planning committee, and they have worked very hard to ensure safety and security. But leave it to fate, or maybe destiny. It does not matter how much planning goes into anything. There is always something that is bound to go wrong. And this is exactly what will happen here. The three wise men are also making plans for the holidays. But rest assured that these plans are not meant to bring peace, love, or joy to anyone or anything. These three rogues thrive on bringing misery and sadness to their targets, and so their holiday plans include doing just that. And as luck would have it, they get wind of this upcoming grand gala ball, and soon they were digging and making plans to sabotage this grand gala ball. You see, these three rogues are extremely technically savvy. They are very relentless, and they are rude and cheeky, and they have managed to make a very important discovery. And this is how it is at this very moment. Part 4. The Royal Masquerade Ball. And this is what it was supposed to be. A masquerade ball where all invitees be required to wear masks chosen by their hosts. Of course, most of these invitees knew each other beforehand, but none of them knew who would be wearing what, nor did they know what they themselves would each be wearing. Only the hosts knew. The guests arrived on time. There were almost 1,000 of them. They were shown to their suites and told that they would be attending the grand gala the next day. The suites were out of this world, crammed, lavish, and containing everything and anything that a guest would require. Everything that a guest would need. The clothes provided to the guests were top of the line, and no doubt each guest was simply overwhelmed by it all. Lavish gift baskets for each guest. In addition, they were required to put on their masks before entering the grand gala ball, and this would help to ensure the secret identity of each guest. The host and the organizing committee had planned it all. So now the moment had arrived, and it was time for proceedings to begin. Guests received their masks just minutes before they were instructed to leave their suites, and they slipped them on before leaving their suites. Guests arrived at the doors on time, and they were individually greeted. Their secret identity was noted by greeters, and a master list was constantly being updated. Beforehand, guests were not allowed to interact with each other. They would have their chance to do so when it was time to remove their masks at the ball. Guests were extremely expectant and excited. Most of them would later reflect that the hype of all of this was simply unbelievable, and they all marveled at how well this was organized. There were two guests in particular who were looking forward to this particular event. They were a young couple, boyfriend and girlfriend, of some sort of European nationality. They were very lucky to have been able to obtain invitations, and now they were going to make very sure that they made the most out of this. Sure, they knew the identity of each other, but of no one else for now. And as it turned out, this would play a part in causing horror and havoc a bit later. And this is how it was at this very moment in time. Part 5. A baby is born. And as they say, nothing ever goes to plan. It was hoped that this special package would arrive after the masquerade ball was over. But oh no! The package arrived at the midpoint of the ball. Up until then, guests were having a fantastic time, meeting and greeting each other, trying to guess the identity of each other. And oh yes, several identities were indeed uncovered, but greeters circulated to make sure that no one removed their mask. The hosts circulated, and that was the young royal couple, with the young prince staying close by his wife's side. They circulated, greeted, and made sure that everyone was having a great time. Lots of refreshments were served, and there were long, large buffet tables along the perimeter of the large hall, with servers at the ready to serve, and waiters making sure that drinks were always topped up, and that canapes and hors d'oeuvres were being shared. And while the young couple circulated, greeted, and laughed, there was another young couple also circulating, but now they had split up and was paying very close attention to what was going on. Then the intercom suddenly crackled, and there came the announcement. The announcer announced that a very special package had just been delivered, and that the young royal couple needed to excuse themselves to take care of this delivery. So the guests watched fascinated as young Prince Jensen and his wife, young Princess Anastasia, excused themselves from the room, and most of them had no idea what was really going on. Truth be told, a baby was about to be born, and he made his way into the world not too long after the young royal couple had exited. Princess Anastasia had artfully managed to hide her bulging tummy so that no one could guess her pregnancy, and was announced over the intercom as follows. Both Prince Jensen and Princess Anastasia are delighted to announce the birth of their firstborn, a baby boy weighing 8 pounds, and his name is Eric Alexander Lucas. Please join us in welcoming Eric Alexander Lucas. And the guests erupted simultaneously in cheers. Champagne glasses were clinked all around. Candy cigars were passed around, and the real celebration was now on the way. Guests were now invited to remove their masks, and the real party had now begun. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 6. In the middle of the night. And the grand gala ball had continued into the wee hours of the morning, with guests partying and celebrating the birth of baby Eric Alexander Lucas. Prince Jensen and Princess Anastasia had retired to their royal suite, where Princess Anastasia had been checked by her doctors, with the proud papa hovering close by. And then the baby prince had been taken to his nursery. He was cleaned and sponged off, and then he was placed in his bassinet. His night nurse came in and sat close by, and everything was set for the night, or so it was supposed to be. The royal couple's room was just next door to the nursery, and the staff and the medical teams had their rooms just down the hall. And as the party continued, something else was about to happen. Baby Eric was sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. His nurse sat close by watching over him, and she had brought a mystery novel to read as well, which she hoped would help her to stay awake and alert. And the young royal couple lay in their royal suite next door, sleeping fitfully and trying not to be too nervous. They knew that they would not be sleeping very much for tonight, or for many nights to come, as Anastasia tried not to get up and go visit her little son, and Jensen did his best not to do the same. But they had been given mild sedatives to help them settle down, and the clock had just struck 2. The hallway was almost deserted, and most of the staff had either retired or had settled down to do a bit of work and relax. Our young nurse had just finished her rounds of the royal suite, and a young doctor had just finished checking in on the prince and the princess. They walked towards each other in the hallway. They nodded to each other as they passed each other, and then they appeared to walk in opposite directions. But then the nurse had hesitated for one moment and had opened the door to another room and had entered, closing the door softly. The doctor had continued his walk to the end of the hall, had opened the door, and had continued on. He walked quietly to an exit door. Minutes later, the door to Eric's nursery had opened quietly. It opened soundlessly, and a nurse had entered. She signaled to the nurse sitting beside the baby's bassinet and whispered to her that she had come to relieve her. The nurse sitting by the bassinet had closed her book, rose, smiled, and had exited the room. The new nurse took her place and had settled down, and as baby Eric slept peacefully, and as his parents tried to do the same in the next room, something else was about to happen that would change the lives of the young royals forever. And this is how it was at this very moment in time. Part 7. An SOS call for help. Oh boy. Just a few days before the big day, December 25th. And on this day, the young royals were up bright and early and ready to visit their newborn child. They dressed quickly, and without eating breakfast, they pressed the intercom to tell the baby's nurse in the nursery that they were on their way, that they would be there in a minute for a visit. The nurse did not respond, and Prince Jensen again pressed the intercom and gave his message. No response. The royals did not wait to repeat for a third time. They bounded out of their suite and down the hall to the nursery. Prince Jensen pushed the door open, and then he stood in sheer horror. Princess Anastasia saw what he saw: an empty bassinet, baby Eric nowhere to be seen, and a missing nurse. No nurse in sight. The nursery was completely deserted. Princess Anastasia screamed and collapsed, and soon everyone in the royal quarters was running in the direction of the scream. Prince Jensen rushed to his wife's side and began to minister to her, and all hell broke loose. Doctors, nurses, security staff, and everyone else were all on the scene, all at the same time. And it took the security detail to bring things under control. It took them a few minutes to do so. Then the room and the hallway were cleared, and then began a search for the missing baby and his nurse. The royal guards had been previously trained on how to deal with this type of situation, and they immediately sprang into action, thoroughly searching the nursery, the royal suite, the entire compound, and much more. All of the guest suites were searched as well, and all of the guests were awakened, searched, and interrogated. By now, news of the missing baby had spread to the guests, and a lockdown was implemented, with guests confined to their rooms. No sign of baby and nurse. No unfamiliar fingerprints were discovered. Nothing showed up when dusting for everything and anything else. The guest list was thoroughly scoured and turned up nothing. Time to put out an urgent SOS call. Prince Jensen's parents were notified, and Princess Anastasia's parents were also notified. Both parents advised the young couple to notify Interpol immediately, and all other international crime prevention organizations. Kris Kringle and his foundation were also notified, and true to form, he contacted his good friend Josh Reisman, the world-renowned investigative reporter and high-profile crime solver. And in turn, Josh contacted his friends Marco and Nicholas for help. And this is how certain corners of the world received urgent SOS calls from the young royal couple. Just days before December 25th, time for Josh and Marco and Nicholas to come to the rescue. There were these discoveries to note. 2 guests were missing, and as yet their identities were unknown. A nurse from the royal medical team was also missing. And this is how it was at this very moment, with lots of mayhem. Part 8. Ringing phones. And true to form, certain phones began to ring. in various corners of the world. And this is how it was supposed to play out, according to certain folks. In one corner of the world, 3 amigos sat in easy chairs, sipping coffee and munching on pastry. Their phone rang and it was put on speaker. They listened as the caller at the other end told them that all was well. Everyone was safe, and now they awaited further instructions. Shortly after this, phones in another corner of the world started to ring. Prince Jensen's parents picked up their phone with trembling hands and heard the caller say in a very heavy accent that they had their baby grandson and that they would have to wait for further instructions. In the same corner of the world, another phone rang, and Princess Anastasia's parents picked up their phone. They also received the same message. In his little corner of the world, Josh Reisman's emergency line rang, and he picked up, listened, and did not take long to spring into action. And in their little corner of the world, Marco and Nicholas received a frantic phone call from Josh Reisman, and soon Marco was taking charge. He not only had to manage his laid-up wife and kids, and he also had to find ways for Nicholas to communicate verbally because of his severe laryngitis. Thank God for Nicholas's wife, Jane. And so it was in these respective corners of the world. Anxiety, frightfulness, panic, and much more reigned. And this is how it was at this very moment. Panic, anxiety, and uncertainty. Part 9. Demands and desperation. And the kidnappers received their instructions from the 3 wise men, or the 3 amigos, as they now called themselves. They and their precious package were in a seaside hotel somewhere in Europe. It was decided that Marco would be the negotiator on behalf of the royals, and that the others would stay in the background. Nicholas and Josh would be his teammates, and they would assist him. The royals would be kept abreast at every moment, and this included the prince and the princess and their parents. Kris Kringle would also be included in the updates, but there was something else that Kris also decided to do, and for the time being, he kept it to himself. It did not take long for the demands to be made. In short, 100 million euros in cash, and for the prince and princess to abdicate their roles immediately, and to relinquish all of their worldly possession. No media to be contacted, and there was a deadline set for 2 days from this day. This would bring the deadline to the morning of Christmas Eve. The kidnappers were instructed to let the royals know that they would write a press release after the ransom was met for the royals to release, and if there were any leaks before the ransom was paid, baby Prince Eric would be killed. Both sets of parents agreed that the cash could be given, but that it would take a bit longer to assemble this, as it needed to be withdrawn from various European banks. Read the second and third demands. They were not even willing to entertain these. And as Marco, Nicholas, and Josh chatted virtually the royal parents continued to fret, discuss, and grow more anxious by the minute. So did the parents. But they did their best to support their children. They demanded to see a photo of their baby grandson, and the three amigos instructed the kidnappers to take an image of the sleeping baby and to send it via the most secure channel to the royals. And this was done. This, however, was followed by another image, one of baby Eric with a hand missing. The kidnappers had also laid out a road map that for each hour after the deadline had passed, and if the ransom had not been met, the royals would receive continuing images of the baby with missing limbs. And finally, they would receive a picture and of the baby being wrapped in a blanket and being readied to be thrown into the sea. All of these images were uploaded by secured channels and sent to the royals. A sobering image of a baby wrapped in a blanket with someone getting ready to throw him into the sea was also sent to the royals. But something else was spotted in the final image, and all of these images were shared with Marco, Nicholas, and Josh. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 10. Twists and turns. The three amigos truly believed that they had everything under control, and this would help them to get their ransom paid. Soon they would get their ransom paid, and then they would decide what to do with the baby prince. Truth be told, they had no intention of returning him to his parents. Instead, they would sell him to a couple that they knew, who were looking to adopt a baby boy. The kidnappers stayed put, but truth be told, they were very nervous. All three doctor, all three of them. Doctor and two nurses had worked for the young royals for a while, and they had loved their employers. But like everything else, they were being handsomely paid by the three amigos, and they felt that it was more beneficial to carry out the kidnapping. The doctor and one of the nurses had posed as guests, managing to do so through some ingenious maneuver, and it did help that they were indeed girlfriend and boyfriend. They had booked off the night of the grand gala beforehand, had managed to obtain guest invitations, and had somehow managed to obtain masks, and they had forged their names into the guest list, and had even managed to secure identities so that masks matched their identities in the guest list. Thus, they had managed to cover their tracks. The kidnappers had been told that Marco would be representing the royals, and they accepted this. The kidnappers were relieved, as they really did not want to negotiate directly with the prince and princess, and the three amigos had agreed. First off, Marco told the kidnappers that they would not receive the cash until the day after Boxing Day, as the European banks would be closed for the holidays. The kidnappers conferred with the three amigos, and they agreed to wait until the day after Boxing Day. But if the cash was not delivered to a predetermined destination, by the end of that day, baby Eric's life would be in danger. The demands for the young royals to abdicate their positions and to give up all of their worldly possessions needed to be discussed amongst the royals. The kidnappers were instructed to give the young royals until the morning of Christmas Eve to agree to this. And if these two demands were not met, baby Eric would lose his right ear to start with. So it went for the next 2 days, with Marco acting as the intermediary, the three amigos issuing instructions to the kidnappers, and in turn them relaying messages to Marco, who in turn relayed them back to the royals. Baby Eric was naturally unaware of the fuss going on around him. The doctor and nurses took good care of him. His parents and grandparents were in constant touch with each other, and many ideas were thrown around. Meantime, Marco, Nicholas, and Josh constantly huddled virtually over the next few days. Their goal was to try and discover the location of the kidnapper, then to develop some sort of plan for a possible rescue. Kris Kringle joined the team and told them that he had contacted his dear friend Santa Claus and had asked him to put his special teams on standby. This was received with much gratitude. By the day before Christmas Eve, Marco and his team had managed to confirm that the kidnappers were operating from a location somewhere in Europe, but they did not know the exact country, and they needed this vital piece of info in order to move forward. The young royals were constantly demanding updates, and Marco had to tell them that he and his team were simply doing their best, and he did so very politely. By mid-afternoon on the day before Christmas Eve, Marco and his team had narrowed the country down to maybe Cyprus or Greece. And they did this on the part of sheer ingenuity on the part of Nicholas and Josh, with Josh feeding Nicholas with geographic info and Nicholas using his special powerful devices to plot points and graphs. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 11. The Lucky Break. And the lucky break came just before sunset, on the day before Christmas Eve, which was the deadline from the kidnappers. Somehow, when the photo of the baby wrapped in his blanket was transmitted, Marco discovered the logo of the hotel on the blanket. He enlarged the photo so that Josh and Kris and himself could describe it to Nicholas. And then it was time to act. And this had to be done with lightning speed. Marco did not tell the royals until everything was in place. Or maybe he would decide not to tell them anything until the baby was brought to safety. Kris contacted Santa Claus, who in turn contacted his special team, and now it was time for action. Santa Claus gleamed with pride as he shared all of this with Mrs. Claus, his reindeer, his helpers, his elves, and his special kids. Everyone was now on full alert, and the North Pole was placed on standby and stood ready to help if needed. Santa's special team was briefed, and it was decided that the rescue would take place as quickly as possible. Baby Eric was being held by his kidnappers at a very luxurious seaside hotel on the island of Cyprus, and Santa's special teams had reported back to their boss that they thought that they could carry off this special mission to bring baby Eric safely back to the North Pole, and from there he would safely be delivered to his parents. The royals were still not apprised of these latest developments, and Marco had decided that they would not be told until the baby was safely rescued and taken to safety. And this is how it was at this very, very moment. Part 12. The Royal Rescue. The Royal Rescue began on the evening at around 10 p.m. before Christmas Eve. First, Snowcone and Snowflake and their Snowbirds team circled the island of Cyprus and had no difficulty locating the hotel where the baby was being held. Next, they relayed the location of the hotel to the waiting mermaids and dolphins. Then they proceeded to form a tight circle overhead around the hotel where they would keep watch until the baby was rescued. The mermaids and dolphins took up their positions, with Jamie and Mallory and their mermaids team sneaking quietly ashore and then going up to the hotel, where they had no difficulty finding the suite where the kidnappers and baby were. Jamie and Mallory directed their mermaids team to get into position, and then they were moving in. At the same time, Dolphins Sequin and Sea Jade and their dolphins team took up their positions in the sea close to the shore, making very sure that they would not be seen. Finally, a Santa's special sea sleigh hovered close by, bobbing gently on the sea, and this special sea and air sleigh was invisible, and it could travel both by sea and by air. Reindeer Frosty and Misty and their reindeer team waited excitedly and anxiously close by to receive the baby. Jamie and Mallory and their mermaids silently entered the suite. They found the three kidnappers sitting in their easy chairs, thoroughly engrossed in their iPads, and noticed that baby Eric was asleep in a little cradle close by. They wasted no time. They began their concert of singing and dancing to the kidnappers, who were totally surprised to see them, who were powerless to do anything as they watched mesmerized. Soon the three kidnappers were snoring and were in dreamland, and the mermaids sprayed the room with fragrant mist, so even if they were to wake up, they would not be able to see anything. The mermaids took great care not to spray their mist too close to the sleeping baby, and then, swiftly and oh so gently, they lifted baby Eric out of his cradle and tiptoed out of the room, carrying him on their little mermaid bed. The mermaids carried the sleeping baby to the water's edge, where dolphins Sequin and Sea Jade waited with their dolphin team. They took the baby and then swam effortlessly and gracefully out to the sleigh, holding the mermaid bed aloft amongst themselves. They swam to the gently bobbing sleigh, where Frosty and Misty and their reindeer team waited. Sleeping baby was received, and then with tender, loving care, he was placed in a special carry cot, and the straps were tightly secured. Then the sleigh quietly lifted off, and the snowbirds then reported back to Santa that the baby was on his way to the North Pole. Marco and Nicholas and Josh and Chris were able to witness this rescue firsthand as they watched from their special monitors in their little corners of the world. By 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve, baby Eric was back on his way to his waiting parents after having touched down at the North Pole. He was placed on Santa's personal sleigh, and Rudolph, along with Santa and Mrs. Claus, took off to deliver the baby to Prince Jensen and Princess Anastasia. And it was only after Santa's sleigh had left the North Pole that Marco told the royals to expect their baby in the next hour. And just imagine the look on their faces when the guards informed them that a couple was standing at the gates with a package asking to see them. And then they realized it was Santa and Mrs. Claus holding baby Eric out to them and standing and smiling broadly. And there were 2 more presents for the young royals. 2 baby lambs named Prince and Princess, courtesy of Santa's special lambs, Rainbow and Raindrop. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you liked it. I hope you're enjoying your holidays and enjoying everything that comes with the holidays. The President's Christmas Royal Rescue is a wonderful story that brings warmth and friendship to the hearts. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you for my 11th episode. Happy holidays, everybody.